Welcome to another episode of The Wireless Way. I'm your host, Chris Whitaker. And as always, I'm grateful that you're here and equally grateful for I'll say a friend of the business anyway. We don't hang out on weekends, but if we live close, I would totally have him over for a barbecue or a beverage or so. But today we have Jason Lowe, also AKA J Lo. And I'm sure, do you still get called J Lo?
I do.
Okay, good. All right. So I'm not you got to call you J Lo, but going way back with J Lo, AI strategist, executive advisor, and host of his own podcast, AI Diatribe. And I used to work together at another TSD, and that's where I learned his gift for taking complex technical problems and just kind of simplify them for the average person and helping them find their business impact of these technologies. So always enjoyed watching you work, Jason. Today, he continues that mission of helping leaders make sense of artificial intelligence, separating what truly matters from the noise. There's a lot of it out there, and spotlighting what's next in AI. He advises executives, trains teams, and leads AI adoption efforts across industries, all kinds of industries, with a focus on practical strategies for applying large language models, generative AI, and automation to solve real business problems. So, Jason, I could go on in the interest of time I won't, because we only have so much time today, right? How you doing, man? Thanks for making time to join me on The Wireless Way.
I'm doing great. I mean, goodness gracious. For those that are watching this, it's near the end of the week for us. And so we're hanging on for dear life and we can make it. But life is good. You bet.
Yeah, life is good. Every day I'm grateful, man. As long as I can get out of bed and take a breath, I got a chance. That's my feeling about it. So
any day above ground is a good day.
That's right, man. We got a chance, you got to love that. So, we all have our professional bios. We have, your LinkedIn profile. Check the show notes. We'll have links to learn more about Jason, what he's doing. But tell us more. What's not in the bio?
What's not in the bio? I don't know, man. I'm a pretty boring guy. Pretty much what's in the bios is what. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't buy that.
Yeah, I live in Utah. I have various hobbies and things that I do. Artificial intelligence and technology in general is certainly a passion of mine, but I'm also very active in various musical projects. I still DJ and get paid for it, which is a really nice
like weddings, bar mitzvahs. What kind of events?
I play in clubs.
Wow, so you're like, so, okay, yeah. I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, 80s and 90s is my genre. And so whenever anybody wants to do like some sort of a Retro Riot, that's the brand name that I DJ under, is Retro Riot here in Salt Lake City. Whenever anybody wants some sort of a flashback night, I end up getting hired. In fact, tomorrow, I don't do private gigs, but tomorrow I'm doing one for a good friend who's getting married. And so, yeah, every once in a while I'll do a private gig, but it's mostly in the clubs.
That's fantastic. And what's your DJ name?
I don't have a DJ name. I just do it under the brand name Retro Riot. That way, if I ever need someone to sub for me or I want to bring on an additional DJ to do additional gigs, then I can do so. And that's how it works.
I don't know if she has it trademarked, but I think DJ J-Lo just has a ring to it, man. I don't know.
I've been called that. One of the clubs that I have DJ'd for tried to do that for a bit, but I'm not about it. I'd rather
not about it. Okay, it's your brand, man. That's your brand. When did you become a tech enthusiast? I mean, how far back can you go where you're like, I think this technology is pretty cool?
7-ish.
And what that look like?
Yeah, so I had when I was a kid was when the Atari 400 and the Atari 800 computers were coming out, and the Commodore 64 was a little bit later. And, this was even before the Atari gaming console came out. And I had a good friend who had a 400, and we did a little gaming on it, and then we got the Atari console, and I was fascinated and hooked. And then when the personal computer started becoming a thing, I talked my parents into getting an Apple IIc computer and started learning a whole bunch of stuff, figuring out, scripting and batching and all sorts of nefarious things related to different video games and maybe getting copies of them, but you never heard that from me. One of the great and fun things that I liked was diving into some of the applications that were available. So, for example, my father was a businessman. He owned a restaurant here in the Salt Lake City area. There were spreadsheets. There was the equivalent of a Microsoft Excel on the Apple IIc that could do all sorts of really great things. And I was fascinated by this. I mean, being a math guy, it was really neat to go in and dive in and create these spreadsheets that do all these wonderful things. I ended up showing my dad how to do a bunch of stuff, and I realized that I had a proficiency for technology when I could do that stuff, but he couldn't quite figure it out. He still needed to use pen and paper, and he didn't quite grasp the concept of how to use a spreadsheet on a computer. And so then I thought, okay, this is easy for me. And then through high school, I helped set up the Mac lab in my high school. I got a job as in the tech industry right out of high school, and I've been in tech ever since.
So other than keeping the books for your dad's restaurant, did you ever have to bus tables or work in the kitchen?
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah,
if it's a true family business, I bet you did.
Yeah. Started out as a dishwasher, ended up bussing tables, became it was an ice cream shop, so I became an ice cream dispenser. And yeah, it was a great way to start working at the young age of 14, because here in the state of Utah, you could start working before 16 if it was a family-owned business, and helped get me in the stream of things.
So it was an ice cream shop?
It was, yes.
So, okay. So you didn't have to worry about cooking. There was really no kitchen per se. It was just...
My main worries were not cleaning out the inventory at lunchtime because I loved ice cream so much. That was my big worry.
And yeah, I love ice cream, by the way. So yeah, we can almost... I hope I don't get too distracted here. What was there a particular brand? Was it like Hershey or Baskin Robbins, or did you make your own ice cream? Or how?
There was a ice cream shop franchise chain that started out in Sacramento, California, where I grew up. And then my dad bought the rights to the state of Utah with a partner. And so we ended up moving to Utah to open up the restaurant chain here. And that restaurant chain is Leatherby's Family Creamery.
Very cool. Okay. I can't say I've been there. All right. Well, there we go. That I learned two things about you. I always love when I can learn new things about folks. So getting back to the topic at hand, you're working with businesses and other advisors and technology architects. Do you have like a go-to first question you ask when you're going into a new engagement to kind of really figure out, what are we talking about here? Would you say you want to have an AI strategy? What kind of questions are you asking that end user to, kind of vet that out?
I think a lot of businesses are challenged because they're not quite sure what to do. They're still, even now, when a lot of use cases for artificial intelligence have become relatively obvious, particularly in the CX space, but there's a lot of other use cases in other areas as well. There are still people that are still flying on the buzzword of AI, and they aren't quite sure what they can do with it yet. We're still seeing the phenomenon where board of directors goes to the CEO and says, hey, just institute AI wherever you can, just make it happen. And the CEO goes to someone in the company and just says, hey, I've designated you the AI champion, just go implement AI wherever you can. And that person goes, what the heck, what are you talking about? And he says, I don't know, just do it. The CEO just wants you to implement AI. Implementing AI is a very wide, large, and ambiguous term because there are so many different ways that you can apply it. So one of the first things that I try and do when I'm talking to different companies and working on what can be done for them is, do they have specific use cases in mind? Have they done process analysis? Have they done their own internal readiness assessment to see if they really are truly ready to do this type of thing? Do they have their own model that they've trained? Are they using an enterprise or a frontier model? Are they using a model at all? Does what they require need a model, or is it just going to be some other form of deep learning that we could try and implement? I mean, there's all sorts of crazy questions that you need to ask to really boil down just what have they done? How ready are they? Have they done the analysis to figure out what they've got to work on? And if not, what do we need to do to start figuring out where we can implement AI to increase efficiency and increase productivity, and in turn give a good positive ROI? And so that's really it. A lot of discovery to figure out what the current state is and what they envision.
Have you had engagements where you go down that line of questioning and the end user has good answers? I mean, no, or is it more of a back and forth, a lot of due diligence? That's been my experience. I mean, the first call, you rarely get to the nitty gritty. What's been your experience with making progress in that conversation? And does it end up with a solution? How long does that take, or does it vary?
Well,
we'll be right back.
I'm excited to introduce you to a brand new partner to the show. This wasn't a company calling saying, hey, I want to advertise on your show, although I would be nice too. But more importantly, this is me calling them saying, hey, I believe in what you stand for. I believe in your product. I want you to advertise on the wireless way. And here we are. So I'm so grateful to have this opportunity to share it with you. And of course, I'm talking about Pure Talk, America's wireless company, whose CEO is a veteran and served a couple tours in theater. A wireless company who believes in creating American jobs. which is why their customer service is right here in Georgia, where I'm located. So pretty stoked about that. And here's the deal. Pure Talk is on America's most dependable 5G network, same towers, the same networks as the big guys, but here's the catch, man. It's half the cost. You can get unlimited talk, unlimited text, and 5 gigs of data for just $25. Now, there's other options, but I can tell you the average person is using around 5 gigs because you're on Wi-Fi most of the day. But if you need more, you can get more at great rates. Now, the average family saves almost $1,000 a year on their cell phone, and not to mention the savings for businesses at Pure Talk Business. You can keep your phone, you can keep your number, or just choose the latest iPhones and Androids available. So just go to puretalk.com to save on your wireless bill. Make the switch today at puretalk.com and join America's wireless company, Pure Talk.
It's really interesting because a lot of people really are in that beginning state. And we all know that CX or customer experience or, basically telephony, whether that be unified communications or contact center, is an area where artificial intelligence has truly been productized and can offer a positive ROI right out of the box. And even now, with the prevalence of AI tools and capabilities, there are a lot of companies that have not really fully utilized that yet to get the best possible return on investment. And so oftentimes it's easy to kind of do a parallel effort. One, figure out all the other use cases and things that they might want to try and do. But two, at the same time, start with some low-hanging fruit where we might be able to get some positive ROI right away within their communication space. And I have found that outside of the communication space, people really are still kind of unsure. I mean, everybody's using it, whether they're using it in a shadow AI form or not, whether it's a company endorsed model or not, everybody's using it for something. The question is, how do we do the process analysis to figure out what pieces of those processes are repeatable, can be executed by artificial intelligence, which can augment the capability of a human being and make that human being more efficient and faster? That's really when you get down into the nitty gritty. So that's what I'm seeing most of the time is the need for that process analysis, even from the get-go.
Are you seeing companies and business leaders have some level of fear factor? I'm like, they're scared of this because it's the unknown, and they're like, I don't understand this. Stay away. We don't want to do this, but we know we have to be competitive. I mean, what's the fear factor conversations like? Are you seeing that element?
Quite a bit. I mean, you have a lot of people internally that are looking at this and going, how are we going to make money on this? How can we prove out that this is going to give a positive ROI? And sometimes it's not going to give a really huge positive ROI. When people talk about investing in artificial intelligence, I think what a lot of people tend to lose sight of is that it's an investment. This is not something that you're going to get a big, huge, massive ROI immediately. And sometimes what you have to do is get started somewhere so that you're building a culture within the company of usage of artificial intelligence, that people are comfortable and familiar with it, that there are integrations being built that are allowing future efficiencies to happen. Building out infrastructure that maybe not is going to pay off right away, but is setting the foundational elements for greater positive ROI in the future for other use cases. And so, yeah, there is a lot of fear because quite frankly, it is an investment. It's something that people are scared of because they're not sure what it's going to be able to do. They're not sure of the impact it's going to have on the company. They're not sure what's going to happen to their own freaking job, let alone what it's going to do for other jobs within the company. And so there's fear from a company perspective, but also from an individual perspective as well, and a cultural perspective, because with jobs that people realize that artificial intelligence could replicate or even replace some of the responsibilities that they're taking care of right now, there is a natural hesitancy to resist that and to worry about that. And that goes from the top down. It's all over the company. And so culture change is another one of those things that you really have to focus on, making sure that people realize that how to utilize artificial intelligence is to augment more than it is to replace right now. Many people are fearful of that replacement.
Yeah, I hope I don't want to be controversial here, but this is kind of a controversial question / statement, but adoption rates, I'm an IoT guy. I'm a wireless guy, obviously. And I've been making this observation for probably going on 10 years, making this observation of when I talk to a business leader and, they're at least 15 years younger than me, maybe in that, 20, 30s or early 40s, they're more likely to sign off on this. They get it. But yeah, if they're my age or older, they're not. Kind of like your dad. You kind of talk about your dad was reluctant to use a spreadsheet. He was much more comfortable with a pen and paper and filling it out manually. Which means that over the next 3 to 5 years, as we see the changing of the guard, do you think that's going to enhance or increase adoption rates? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. There is a generational gap between comfort and adoption between those that are of a little bit older generation versus younger generation. That being said, there is not a certainty that just because someone is of a younger generation that they're going to have that comfort and they're going to really want to dive into that. And part of that is because, well, let's call it the millennium generation and later, they're not in leadership positions yet, or not a lot of them. There tends to be in that, and for those of you that are of that generation, I'm not saying this generally. This is just kind of an observation that I have made. There tends to be much more of a focus culturally within that generation for fulfillment and job, and that doesn't necessarily translate to a huge amount of ambition and drive to get themselves into some sort of a leadership position that is going to need to make those decisions and figure out how to adopt AI and figure out where in the company and the processes this can actually be incorporated. And so I think corporate America, by and large, is still dealing with that generational gap, and that is slowing down adoption in a lot of different ways. Now, that being said, there are many people, millennium and other younger generations, that are ambitious enough to start their own companies, and those are the lucky ones that are really kind of diving forward. We're also dealing with a situation where AI is having a massive effect on software development. And so we have a lot of people that have been coming up that like programming and like technology, but they're having a hell of a time finding a job, because junior developer positions are just drying up, because senior developers are now able to be 5 times as efficient utilizing AI coding tools and vibe coding tools to try and create a code base and then refine from there. So, there's this plethora of tech-centric people that is trying to find their place from this younger generation, and they will eventually find their place and insert themselves into other areas that are not necessarily maybe software development specific, and that will certainly help other companies try and become a little bit more used to the idea of AI adoption, but that's going to take a little bit of time. The disruption from artificial intelligence is going to happen faster than our workforce is able to adopt to it, for sure.
Fantastic. Yeah. That, as you were talking, I was just thinking about all the other use cases. And, I think in this ecosystem, this channel that you and I are part of, for the most part, voice is a very common tool. Most people built their business on selling dial tone and connectivity. So the enhancement of AI to CX just makes a lot of sense. It seems like the natural extension of the conversation. And, for me, again, I'm more like fringe technologies in the sense. So that whole IoT is like, what manual processes can be automated? If it's a lot of repetition, if it's someone literally moving something from one side of the counter to the other side, there's a lot of robotics can be enhanced with AI, and we're seeing that now. We're kind of entering into this 5th generation of the Industrial Revolution, which is pretty exciting, with even humanoids and androids and whatnot. But AI video, even in retail, seeing taking digital data feed from a security camera, looking at a shelf of product in a retail store, and AI being able to identify. Normally there's 10 boxes of Tylenol. There's only 4 boxes of Tylenol now. Create a ticket for the back office, the back warehouse, to bring out some more Tylenol. That whole scene change. You're right there. We could probably spend hours just talking about different use cases, even outside of CX. But yes, trying to get the idea that that's not necessarily going to, people will lose jobs, I think, but there's new jobs being created. It almost reminds me, have you heard the analogy of the gaslighters, in England, back in the day when all the street lamps are gas and someone had to go around and light them every night, had to go light them. Electricity comes along. Those lamp lighters either had to become an electrician, or they were unemployed, or had to go find a new career because there was no more lamps to be lit. There's thousands of those examples. Think about people that used to fix carriages. Now if they didn't become an auto mechanic, they had to go change jobs. So I there's definitely this fear factor. We're putting people out of work. what's your thoughts on that? Are you having conversations of, workforce management and how AI is going to reduce headcount, or what's your thoughts there?
Well, I have many thoughts. There is a difference between what I see coming and what people are actually experiencing now. But the time interval between what I see coming and what people are experiencing now is very, very small. We're dealing with a phenomenon here where it's happening much faster than previous industrial revolutions or changes to the workforce has happened before. When automobiles were created and, buggy and carriage repairers and horse trainers. That's in my family. I have a background with some ancestors that were in horse training about the same time that the Model T came out, and suddenly they had to pivot and do different things in their life. And, there was a time period there of a decade or more where the technology actually finally became adopted from bleeding edge to late adopter. That adoption curve spread out over a period of a number of years. I don't think we're going to have that type of an adoption curve with artificial intelligence. We've all seen evidence that artificial intelligence is being adopted at a rate so much faster than anything else. Social media was considered really quickly adopted. The internet before it was considered quickly adopted, and social media was 2 to 3 times faster. Artificial intelligence is looking like it's going to be 4 times faster than people adopted various forms of social media. And it's just going to accelerate because there is positive ROI there. There is a way for people to run their business more leanly, more efficiently, and more profitably utilizing artificial intelligence. And so it's a race, and it's going to be driven by our capitalist model, because you're going to have competition where companies are going to see what other companies are doing utilizing AI for efficiencies and to drive their prices a little bit lower and reduce their costs, which is going to make them more competitive in the market, and others are going to have to react. It's going to be a very interesting phenomenon where the momentum that is going to create this adoption of AI is going to be completely insurmountable and is going to be too fast. It's going to happen faster than humans have ever had to deal with adapting to that before. So will it cause job losses? Absolutely. Will there be other jobs that spring up in the vast majority of cases, at least for a little while? Yeah, I think so. But artificial intelligence is also evolving at a rate that is so rapid that many of the means of production that human beings fill right now are going to be able to be done by artificial intelligence and, by extension, by robotics very, very soon. Human beings are going to have to shift from a productivity mindset to a creation mindset. And that is a very different thing. There's going to be a real amount of, I don't want to be doom and gloom. I don't want to have my PDOOM score approach 90% or something like that. But, the adaptation that we're going to be dealing with is really crazy. There will be socioeconomic impact that is going to be hard for people to recognize. And I agree with everybody else that's in leadership and artificial intelligence that are out on talks right now saying you have no idea what's coming, because people don't have any idea what's coming. If you think this through and you do the step logic, you'll realize that, we're a year or two out from complete upheaval in the work market, in the workplace, in the labor market. It's not far away. It's much closer than anybody thinks.
I think about going to the grocery store, the self-checkout. I remember, I don't know how long self-checkouts have been around. Let's say about 10, 15 years. There's always this talk of, people need, jobs, and you're getting rid of the cashiers. But okay. So you have, let's just say at most, Publix, Kroger's, whatever, maybe there's, 3 self-checkouts, 2 lanes. So you got 6. And why do you always have standing right there in the middle? You still have to have that human. There's still one. So you got one checkout person kind of monitoring 6 stations now. So that's obviously cheaper than 6 cashiers, I guess. But the fact that there's still, you always need that human, right now. It's like, I keep thinking, how is it going to be 5, 10, 15, 20 years where, the AI really can, fix those errors, because, self-checkout, what happens? This isn't scanning, or this head of lettuce, I can't get it, there's no price in it. I need a price check. I mean, there's always there's a human solution to these errors that we're seeing that's supposed to be automated. It's supposed to make it quicker and less expensive. I donated blood yesterday, and I sat down, and I've been donating blood since I was 18. You used to have to sit down and fill out 5 pages of pagers, papers, boxes, and you felt like you're getting a physical just about before you gave blood. Now it's all on an app. You sit down, they put a device on your thumb, they put a blood pressure monitor on, and stick something in your mouth of your temperature. So you got 3 different, devices taking readings simultaneously, and you got a technician there, basically confirming my name and my birth date. And I'm thinking, with identity technology, I mean, I could sit down, scan my face, facial recognition. Yep, that's Chris Whitaker. Just like even the blood pressure monitors you see at the drugstores, there's no person there. You just stick your arm in the cuff and it gives you your blood pressure. And I didn't say it to her. I was thinking, your job might be in jeopardy because this is very repetitious. It's the same process 15, 20 times a day as people come in and donate blood. But again, that's kind of a big deal too. Donating blood, someone has to be there to monitor it. I guess you don't want that process to go wrong.
Analogously, we're dealing with the same type of phenomenon that we are with software development, right? What's happening is that the senior software developers are being retained. The ones that are being let go are junior or entry level developers, or those positions just simply aren't being filled. Or when people drop off, it's just natural reduction in force due to normal circumstance. And yes, while there are humans in the loop, there are going to be positions like the head checker that's in charge of 20 self-checkout stations instead of having 20 lines where people are checking out in the grocery store. But, there were personnel at those other 19 checkout lines that are now gone, and the one that's kept is the senior. So what we're seeing here is, yes, a reduction in workforce. Are all jobs eliminated? No. But are there going to be very many jobs? No, it's going to be a reduction in every particular area. And one of the real major problems with this, and one of the areas of upheaval that this is going to cause, is this is creating a massive effect on career laddering. Because what happens if no one is able to get a junior position and learn that tribal knowledge and learn those things that they need to do that job effectively and gain the experience and the time necessary to become that senior? If no one's entering in, what's going to happen when your senior person is gone and you don't have a junior person in development? I mean, we're talking about serious career ladder disruption right now. It's a paradox that many businesses are going to have to try and figure out what to do until such time as robotics and artificial intelligence is able to do absolutely everything. But that's not as far away as we would think. I mean, it may end up being something that solves its own problem. Who knows? Yeah.
Well, it kind of an adjacent conversation. Are you familiar with Mike Rowe? Mike Rowe Works, the way I heard it podcast. So his angle is, hey, this is great for us. There is a shortage of HVAC repair people. There's a shortage of plumbers, of welders, construction people, mechanics, all these what we would normally call blue collar jobs. They're projecting, massive shortage there. And he's saying, hey, these are AI proof jobs. No one is going to, at least not in anyone's lifetime now. I mean, until the androids and humanoids take over. But you still need people to do these jobs. Farming. Although a lot of that's being enhanced, obviously, I think with AI and IoT. Obviously, there's a lot of cool stuff there going on. But it's going to be interesting to see if people are willing to, pivot and take a different job. In fact, I was watching an article yesterday online, an article. They were interviewing this guy that has 60 automobile body repair shops. Didn't graduate high school, and his dad was a mechanic, and he loved cars, and he started working on cars, and then he started making money, and now he's got 60 of these, and he's a multimillionaire. And he said almost all of his employees make 6 figures, and the requirement is, there is no requirement to have a college education. There's still needs out there, but will people be willing to do something other than sit behind a computer and clack keys all day? It's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. There's definitely opportunities out there to make money. It's just, do people want to go there? If you wanted food, I would. I'd be okay with making some pivots if it meant not losing my house. I don't know.
There will have to be a change for sure. Yeah, but I also simultaneously think, and Chris, this behooves those of us that are into technology and quite frankly are in the business of enabling businesses with let's call it IoT devices, let's call it robotics, let's call it what you will. I think that the timeline for robotics to have an impact in those different areas is shorter than people think as well. Because the thing that's stopping bipedal robots and other robotic devices to be able to work in some of these environments is being able to work in a variable world or in a not completely set world. Where robotics is having a massive impact now, even with the humanoid robotics, is in controlled environments and working in uncontrolled environments like a construction site or like, doing plumbing or all of these different things where it's not the same thing every time. The thing that will allow artificial intelligence and robotics to be able to work in those environments is the development of world building and using world building training, virtual training environments of a variable world for these different models that are driving these robots. And there are actually a few of the godfathers, Jan LeCun being one of them, that of AI, one of these godfathers of AI, that have actually left their efforts with some of their, frontier employers. Jan LeCun was with Meta and has branched off and created his own startups focused specifically on world building because people recognize that is the next great frontier for making robotics be able to work in the real world. I think that that's going to advance pretty darn fast as well. So I'm an optimist from a sense that I'm looking back at, Chris, at the TSD that we worked at in the year 2024, I spent that entire year on the road talking about artificial intelligence at all these different events all over the place. And what I was saying was we've got 5 years, which would be 2029. Oh, it's no longer 5 years. It's going to be much faster. There were things that were looked at to be happening in 2032, 2035 that have already happened. And if that stuff is accelerating that fast, which we are not seeing a slowdown in these capabilities, we're not seeing a slowdown in the development of artificial intelligence capability as it relates to task execution, as it relates to artificial intelligence IQ and knowledge, as it relates to robotics advancements in tactile dexterity and manual capabilities. This is all happening faster than anybody thinks, period.
Absolutely. I was talking to a senior engineer at NVIDIA, and I thought it was pretty awesome that I even got to talk to him. But I met him at an event. He was a keynote speaker talking about 6G, wireless cellular technology. And he's like, hey, we're expecting half the time, normally it was like 10-year increments from, 2G to 3G, 3G to 4G, 4G to 5G. He goes, we're already, have 6G standards in the lab. And it's all a lot because of AI. It's software defined networks, thanks to AI. So that's going to be really fascinating to see how even our wireless environments are changing because of AI. It's not, just the manual labor or the voice interaction with a CX platform. It's kind of rippling across so many different parts of our lives. Even I was talking to, Vince Bradley, Abundant IoT. AI is impacting the power grid. Of course, AI is also consuming tons of energy. There's actually cities where you can't even build a data center because the grid can't support it. They have to be self-sufficient, bring their own solar panels or different types of energy generation. It's quite a deep topic. I know we could go on, but I want to get back to how you advise business leaders. Do you see any common trend of things that they're overlooking? That business leaders are overlooking. Maybe challenges they didn't consider in having these conversations with you?
Probably because they're still thinking of artificial intelligence in terms of a black box solution, which is not what artificial intelligence is yet. We're used to solutions being soup to nuts, productized, inserted as a functional element in a process that has an input and has a distinct output. And that's just not how artificial intelligence can be done yet. Artificial intelligence, going to the electricity analogy, we're still at the stage where we're piping electricity to the kitchen, but nobody has figured out and created the blender yet. Nobody has invented the refrigerator. No one has invented the electric range. And so we're in this really innovative time now where electricity can be used for different things, but people are still trying to figure out, all right, great, I've gotten electricity to drive this motor that turns this piston. What can I do with this motor that turns this piston? And it takes a little bit of an extension to make them go, oh, I can put a blade on it and put it in this, thing, and suddenly I've got a blender. Or I have this, piston that can turn, and I can have that turned into something that pumps water through some sort of a condenser that can then make the environment in this box colder, and I've got the refrigerator. So there's going to be these incremental steps of development that will lead to eventual black box usage of artificial intelligence. But right now, the wild, wild west is figuring out these different pieces that can be used in all of these different applications. And so companies, they expect a black box. They expect to say, okay, I'm going to have artificial intelligence solve this big problem, this big process from start to finish. What people need to start doing is get down to the granular steps of that process, the very granular steps of that process, and every single step, analyze it for what could artificial intelligence possibly do for this one single step to make it more efficient, or possibly even handle it altogether and not require a human intervention. That's where you start getting to correct utilization, at least right now, of artificial intelligence. It takes a paradigm shift away from the black box model to the process analysis model and getting that granular.
Great answer. I like that. I like that word, the word pictures you use there. Where are you seeing the AI conversation resulting in revenue? I mean, let's cut to the chase there. I mean, it's a great conversation to have, but we got bills to pay. I mean, where are people closing deals? What kind of solutions are you seeing, actually yielding a signed contract that yields revenue that might not have existed without the AI component? Are you seeing that? I mean, surely you are. What does that look like?
I would say, yeah, for sure, seeing it. But the difference there, okay, just about any place you can turn some sort of a positive ROI with usage of artificial intelligence. The difference between those that experience a positive ROI and those that don't is the correct application of artificial intelligence. That's the problem, because if they're just wading in for the sake of using artificial intelligence and not doing the deep work, which is the process analysis, what of these earlier steps can I do to incorporate artificial intelligence are going to not only give me some return now, but also more greatly enable a more positive return for future use cases. In other words, there's a lot of people that are just rushing to incorporate AI without really laying out a full boat strategic artificial intelligence roadmap for the company. Utilization of artificial intelligence in a company requires something akin to product management. And this is where the fractional or incremental chief artificial intelligence officer position, I believe, in my opinion, is going to really become a thing for companies. This is something that I am offering, where companies, if they are looking for someone to come in on a part-time basis that is completely separate from the rest of the workings of the company, that can help do that analysis, do that process analysis, see where artificial intelligence can be utilized here. But if we build this, it can also apply to it being utilized here for this company or division, and this area and this area of responsibility. You need to have artificial intelligence management within a company, be at the CEO level, but the CEO doesn't have that technical background, nor do they have the time and the capability to do so, because artificial intelligence capability deployment within a company is going to span multiple organizations within the company. So how do you decide which of those organizations has governance over that? How do you decide which one is going to benefit from it? And are they going to do it with this other area in mind, or are they just going to simply focus on themselves? I could go and I could incorporate an artificial intelligence model in the marketing department and totally not involve sales. I'm just going to do marketing. But wouldn't it be cool if, when I'm training my model for use in marketing, that I also have in mind a way to utilize that in sales, so that salespeople can have this model do some of their legwork and their grunt work as part of the sales process? That's possible to do, but you have to be someone that's outside of the sales and the marketing group that's going to coordinate making that happen and make sure the place that incorporates it first is going to give the best ROI in the short term, and then you're going to set things up for success in the long term for utilization in the other area. So artificial intelligence management, it's definitely a strategic thing. It has to be dealt with at a strategic level. Doing it at a tactical level right out of the gate is where people are not going to experience as much ROI as they would if they were planning things correctly.
Are you still Professor Jason? You still?
I am an adjunct professor at the University of Utah, and it is a lot of fun. Go Utes!
And what's your topics? What's your
information systems? Believe it or not, I'm in the IS program, and I do some of the entry level classes that are required for IS majors, specifically around utilization of some technology as it relates to statistical analysis and even probability analysis. So,
interesting. Yeah. Okay. So I kind of answered my question, because I was like, are there skills and qualities that, the technology professional of the future, now forward, need to have that maybe historically was not needed? Is that education methodology, changing drastically, or just ever so slightly?
I would say drastically. I in a number of different conversations that I've had and a number of different areas that I've worked in, I personally have kind of distilled things down to what I call my 5 Cs, 5 C skills that are necessary to develop for moving into this AI adoption or AI centric workforce. And, that's when people come to me and say, what should I be working on now? That's what I give them. They need to move from the raw repetitive production element to something a little bit higher level. And so those 5 Cs, if you'll permit me, I'll go ahead and say what
Please
those
share
five
them.
Cs
You
are.
got to now.
Yeah. So I think the first one is communication. You have to be able to communicate with not only your coworker effectively, but also artificial intelligence effectively. We all know that prompt engineering was a big thing for a long time. Now it's context engineering, because you have to be able to build enough for artificial intelligence to understand what it is that it's supposed to do effectively. And unless you give it all the information, it may not necessarily be as effective as it possibly could. So that's communication. Another one is collaboration. If you can't work well with artificial intelligence, if you can't work well with other people, figuring out division of labor, strengths and weaknesses, who's best to do what, who's best to do something else, and include artificial intelligence in there as a cohort that you can work with, or even a coworker, you're not going to be as effective. So you have to figure out how to collaborate with other entities, whether they be human or non-human. So communication, collaboration. The third one I would say is creativity. If you're not creative in figuring out different things and looking at things with a fresh set of eyes and thinking outside of the box, well, then how are you going to create something that's going to be able to solve the problems you need to solve? The fourth one is curiosity, because if you don't have that driven curiosity to figure out how to do these things, then you're not going to be motivated to have some sort of an impact, and you're not going to move away from a purely productive state to something that's a little bit higher. But probably that fifth skill that I think is the most important is going to be critical thinking, because you have to be able to look at these processes soup to nuts. Okay, great. That's right. That works well. What doesn't work well? We all know that artificial intelligence, especially large language models, tend to be a little bit sycophantic. They're really trying to predict what it is that the individual wants and needs to hear. And so if they don't have the entire context, then how can they do that and really treat the negatives the right way? Because the stuff that we leave out is the negative stuff, or the stuff that we leave out in the context we give it is the stuff that's going to lead to possible negative consequences, or things that need to be brought out and drawn out that could make things go wrong. We tend to be a little bit optimistic when we're communicating with artificial intelligence. And because of that, artificial intelligence is optimistic communicating back. Are we giving it enough ammo to really be able to look at things critically and figure out what could go wrong? That's one of the things I like to do when I'm prompting artificial intelligence quite a bit is, okay, great, you've given me all this. This is great. This is a great first draft of this thing that I'm having you create. This is a great idea. This is a great concept. Now I'm going to feed it back to you and say, I want you to be extremely hypercritical and tell me what's wrong with it. Suddenly the switch flips, and it's looking at things a little bit different, and it's going to try and be a little bit more critical. Human beings have to be the same way, especially as we're building these new processes and these new ways of doing things and working with these new tools. We have to look at these processes. Okay, great. If I put artificial intelligence here, is it going to give me something good here, or is it going to cause more trouble than it's worth? Is it going to give me a positive ROI initially, or is it an investment in that it's not going to give me what I need right away? So that's the fifth skill that I see as being probably the most important.
Man, those are some nuggets, Jason. I love those. Anything with, anything method out, the 5 C's. Yeah, that might be the title. Jason,
That's
the
the
5
title I
C's.
use. Jason
Yeah,
Lowe's
man.
5 C's. J Lowe's 5 C's.
There we go. J-Lo's 5 C's. Okay, so I'm sure if I'm thinking, like a listener will be thinking right now, like, man, I wonder what this guy's go-to AI platform. Are you like a Chat GPT guy, a Grok, Gemini? I mean, what if you're going to go? Where are you doing most of your AI work with LLMs?
As it relates specifically to LLMs, I find that each one definitely has its own distinct strengths, and I
Good
utilize
answer.
them for different things. ChatGPT is a good generalist for sure. It's also really good at a little bit of research. Codex is fairly strong if you're writing some code. It doesn't have the diversity capabilities like Claude Code does. Anthropic Claude Code is really super strong, and it's really good at doing things outside of the coding mechanism, so much so that, as we know, Anthropic released Claude Co-work, which is agentic capability based on the engine that Claude Code utilizes. And so, Anthropic is really good at writing copy. It's really good at language. Gemini is also a really good generalist, but it also tends to be really good at research because it's tied to Google, for crying out loud. And it's also
Makes
really
sense.
good at a lot of the graphical stuff, video and pictures and things like that. So, um, Mistral is a really good open source one. Llama was really good open source for a long, long time. But, now that Meta has decided to move away from the open source thing, their stuff is starting to fade, at least as far as capabilities, because they haven't released, an open source thing for a while. Copilot, some people really like it. I think that Copilot is is good, and if that's what you have access to, it can certainly do the right thing. But those other three are probably the ones that I utilize more: Gemini, Claude, and ChatGPT.
So let me ask you this. So I love your answer. I mean, I think every tool has a purpose, and you don't use a hammer for a screwdriver, et cetera. So great answer there. It makes me think I need to reevaluate my strategy because I pretty much chat GPT all the way. So I feel like I can ask, I feel like it knows me, right? It just knows me. Copilot, I was very unimpressed with it. I mean, it was okay for certain things, but I just feel like ChatGPT gave me much better outputs. Is that because I use ChatGPT more? It's been trained more by me versus Copilot I hadn't trained. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. The question makes sense. I think you have to keep in mind that LLMs are very much like Drew Barrymore's character in 40 First Dates. Okay. So when you start a new chat right off the bat, it is starting out from scratch. What you're getting in that initial conversation is the end result of the training cutoff date for that particular LLM. Unless within that first prompt, you're telling it to go look at previous conversations and all of these other different things, or there are elements in its knowledge base that it keeps of you that are applicable to what it is that you're asking it. You're starting out from scratch with a newborn baby. That's the bottom line. So it just kind of depends if you're using it consistently for one particular type of work, if the knowledge that it's keeping of you and the way that it works with you pertains to that particular type of work. And if you're asking it to review the work that you have done previously, then yes, it's going to be more effective. If you're doing it all in the same chat thread, you're not starting a new chat to do something new. You're just continuing a chat. It has all the context of the previous chat that it's had that it can draw on for being able to figure out how to do things with you effectively. Copilot, it's not used that way as much. People don't use it as a general LLM, more as they use it as some sort of an aid within the Microsoft Office tools. And is it capable? Yeah, I think it's capable. It doesn't have quite the peripheral bells and whistles that ChatGPT does as far as memory and as far as, file referencing outside of, the Microsoft ecosystem. I mean, Microsoft is kind of limited to within the Microsoft ecosystem, whereas ChatGPT, you can actually integrate it to Google Drive. You can integrate it to Google environments, and same thing with Claude and different things like that. So it's not that it's incapable. It's just that I don't think it's exactly built the same way to be that type of effective that you're after.
You think paying for these services versus using the free versions, is there big benefits to paying for it?
That's a good question.
I had to get one in. I had to get one good question in.
I think so. But then again, I'm utilizing it multiple times every day for a variety of different tasks. It really depends on your use cases and what it is that you're going to use it for. If it's something that you find yourself using on a daily basis, then yeah, I think so. If you're not,
with that, the free versions are limited. You only get so many questions, so many engagements, right? That's probably the biggest difference? Does it?
Yeah. Well, the more powerful iterations of these models are I'm just going to speak in generalized terms. LLMs generally are going to have some sort of a fast response model. And then they're going to have a research model that's kind of up at the top. And then somewhere in between, they might have some sort of a thinking model that will give a little bit more nuanced answer. And if you are using a free version, your opportunity to use the research level is greatly reduced, and your opportunity to use the thinking level is greatly reduced. And so, depending upon if you're having it do research or if you're having it have to really dive into a bunch of sources of information and come up with some sort of a comprehensive answer for your query or what have you, sometimes the fast model isn't going to give you quite the quality as those other two. That doesn't mean the fast model is incapable. If we were to compare the fast model that we have right now to something 6 months or even 9 months ago, it's better than it was 6 months to 9 months ago, and it's now the fast model, it's the base model. So it just really depends on how you utilize it. But I guess a good general guideline is if you're using it multiple times a day, yeah, you should be maybe paying for at least one model.
Yeah, help fund it a little bit. They got bills to pay too, I imagine. And it's been a great conversation, Jason. And I'm laughing at myself because when we in pre-show, you're like, "Well, no, normally how long do you go?" I'm like, "I don't know, 30 minutes or so, 40 minutes," and here we are, come up in an hour. And what was I thinking? Not only an engineer mind, but a professor. I mean, surely a lecturer, a keynote speaker. You don't have short answers, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. That's good. That's why I wanted to talk to you.
Why use 10 words when 100 will do?
I love that version of it. Yeah, last question, man. I mean, looking ahead, is there, you already kind of gave us one prediction that you thought it was going to take longer than it actually is. Is there anything else, like a big shift? Is there anything else we haven't really talked about you think that we need to be aware of or keeping an eye on when it comes to the future and AI and technology?
I would break that up into two categories, and we've covered both of them a little bit, so I'll try to be brief. I'll try and use my 10 words rather than 100. But the first thing I would say is you can overestimate how quickly things are going to develop, and you probably still will not overestimate it enough. Things are going to happen faster than even many of the super optimists are thinking it's going to happen. It already is happening much faster than everybody thought it was going to happen as recently as 6 months to a year ago. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, I don't want to sound like I'm really boosting my P-Doom score, but prepare, because there will be a certain amount of societal and workforce upheaval due to the adoption of artificial intelligence in the short term. It's going to affect a lot of jobs in a lot of different ways. And unless you're really analyzing your particular skill set, your particular job, and looking at how AI could affect it and how you could utilize AI to make your job more efficient and more effective. And if you're discovering that artificial intelligence can more or less replace you right now, like a software developer or a translator or a junior financial analyst or a paralegal, it's going to happen sooner rather than later. Those are the jobs that are being affected right now. How soon is it going to come and affect your job? So you should be doing the real work at looking at your particular skill set, your particular occupation. How is AI going to affect it? How quickly can AI affect it? What's it going to do that I can do now? What am I going to be able to do that it can't do for as long as possible? And then kind of start working in that particular direction. Because a few months from now, the people that are going to be chosen are those that can do the job, are not going to be chosen as often as those that can do the job utilizing AI and make themselves much better and more effective and more efficient. And so be that person that knows how to utilize artificial intelligence to do your job and get a leg up on everybody else that isn't adopting the technology yet.
Fantastic. 2 points. First, I actually heard a great interview question now that smart companies are asking all applicants, how do you use AI today? It's a great interview question, because if they're like, well, I don't really believe, that's a problem, but if they can rattle off numerous reasons, that's great. Second, I think you mentioned it twice. I'm not sure I heard you right. The PU score, is that what you said? What is that?
P-Doom. So in mathematics, probability is a function. It's usually P parentheses with some sort of a percentage, close parentheses, that indicates the probability that some certain thing is going to happen. So P open parentheses, doom, close parentheses is mathematically how it's scripted, but it is your personal prediction or your personal probability that, I don't know if I should use profanity here, but we're all screwed.
Yeah.
The P-Doom score is your prediction and your percentage probability that we're dealing with a Skynet scenario versus a Wall-E scenario. That's your P-Doom score.
That's like the doomsday clock, or like 36 seconds or something from knowledge. That's good news, right? I mean, I'm an optimist. I mean, at least it's not 10 seconds. I mean, we got a little time. Man, any last words, man? Anything you want to leave us with? Let's land the plane.
I would say the last words are: no matter who you are, no matter what you're doing, dive in. There is just no way to avoid what's coming. And the only way that you're going to have an advantage or an ability to sustain your position and an ability to stay competitive is to start learning now. And, it's a scary thing. Artificial intelligence is a tough thing. And we're talking about all occupations, everything from HVAC and plumbing to construction to logistics to warehousing. These are the places where it's going to be adopted a little bit later. but it's already happening in these different areas now. And so you simply must start learning. And if you are a company that has not adopted artificial intelligence where you can, if you haven't done any road mapping, if you haven't done any strategic planning, if you haven't done any readiness assessments or any use case analysis, then start doing it. And if you need help, reach out to someone like Chris or like me. I mean, this is what we do. This is our job, is to help companies adopt technology. And there is help out there, but you need to start doing it now. And if you're not capable, get someone to help.
Yes, you can always go a lot further with a team for sure. And who you partner with matters. Check the show notes, and I'll have more information on how to get hold of Jason and a link to his podcast, AI Diatribe. Real quick, I know we said last words, but how would you describe your podcast? What's your common theme? Clearly AI, but what else can people expect to get if they listen to your show?
It really kind of runs the gamut, to be honest with you. I try to speak to a lot of different technology leaders and how artificial intelligence is affecting their company, their offerings, their products, and how they're doing business, but also dealing with a variety of other different aspects like the effect on certain industries. An individual that is kind of an erstwhile co-host, if you will, is a field CTO for IBM in the Northeast. He's now moved to be a specific practice leader for IBM. And we're going to be focusing on the podcast a lot more this year and really kind of diversifying. And I'd like to really start having it speak to the everyday man. I don't want my podcast to only be effective for people that are at a tech industry or a tech adjacent industry. I want to cover subjects that everybody can listen to and that everybody are going to benefit from. And so that's where I'm starting to lead things and migrate towards.
Perfect. Yeah, I took that same journey. My first handful of episodes were, very wireless technology centric. And I realized real quick, I don't know if everyone is excited about this topic as I am. So yeah, the wireless way, it's a double entendre. Wireless means no strings attached, no judgment, and the ways, the path, the journey, the venture. And today we really covered a lot, and it was very tech savvy conversation. But man, to your point, is it? I mean, it's going to become mainstream. This is kind of the new future. This is going to be the new normal at some point. For I have a 5-year granddaughter. Man, she already whiz on the iPad, and very very tech savvy at 5. Interesting. I know we can keep going, man. So thanks again for your time today. Check the show notes. I'm so grateful we got together, Jason.
You bet, Chris. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
You bet, man. There you go, folks. Another episode of The Wireless Way. As always, if you like what you heard, or you thought about somebody, or thought about a colleague or a customer, share this episode with them. Like, subscribe. I appreciate that. And as always, you can always check the website, thewirelessway.net. There's a contact us button if you have an idea for a guest or you'd like to be a guest. Love to have you and have that conversation at thewirelessway.net. And until then, we'll see you next time on The Wireless Way. That was great, man. Imagine the power of a single cell phone, just one small device destined for more than just calls. I'm talking about cell phones for soldiers. Your retired phone can be a lifeline for veterans and heroes truly in need. Since 2004, this remarkable nonprofit has transformed over 25 million donated phones into more than 450 million free minutes for service members and veterans, reconnecting them with the voices that mean the most. Your donation is kindness in action, reducing electronic waste and empowering those who served. Each device helps fund urgent communication, calling cards, and programs that rebuild connections, restore hope, and unlock new opportunities for veterans. Check the drawer. Your unused phone could make an extraordinary difference. Simply send it in or drop it off at one of the thousands of locations nationwide and give someone the chance to reach loved ones. Visit cellphonesforsoldiers.com today, because even a single device can spark life-changing connections for veterans all across the country. That's cellphonesforsoldiers.com.